The terrain of Greece, with its mountains, deep inlets, secluded valleys, and many disparate islands, provided fertile territory for the development of the political entity of the polis. The word polis is commonly translated into English as city-state. These polis were spread in a patchwork from mainland Greece, across the Aegean and Ionian islands, and even into Anatolia, into what is now Turkey. These independent political units were centered upon an urban focal point and encompassed the surrounding territory, including its citizens and other inhabitants. Over time, more than 1,000 of these polis developed, forming the famous city-states synonymous with the time period of classical Greece. But it was beforehand in the era of Archaic Greece, between 800 and 480 BC, when ancient Greece emerged from the Greek Dark Ages, that the foundations of these city-states were laid. The exact origins of the polis are shrouded in mystery. It possibly developed from the remains of Mycenaean palace-based communities as the population of Greece rebounded in the 9th century BC. Alternatively, the polis may have emerged separately as the Greeks founded colonies overseas in the 8th century BC. Amongst the most noteworthy city-states to become established at this time were Sparta, Rhodes, Athens, Thebes, and Aegina. Although the scope of the polis can be hard to define, lacking a precise definition, most simply put, each polis consisted of a self-governing community of adult male citizens at its top. Immediately below were the citizens without political rights, namely women and children, followed by the non-citizens at the bottom of the social ladder, made up from resident foreigners and slaves. Each polis tended to control a hinterland in the surrounding landscape that could contain villages, farmhouses, or sometimes even small towns. However, there always had to be one central focal point of administrative, religious, and political significance in the city, where the polis proper existed. This centre was frequently fortified, often built on an acropolis, the high ground, or at a harbour. Over time, the nature of being a citizen evolved. The initial fundamental pull that drew citizens together in the earliest formation of polis was loyalty to each other as warriors, prepared to defend, fight for, and even die for their territory. Each polis was enshrined into the network of affairs beyond their bounds, engaging in trade, diplomacy, and war with other Greek polis or non-Greek powers. While the polis established their own unique features, certain characteristics were ubiquitous amongst all the city-states. The urban centre, where the majority of the population resided, always surrounded a sacred religious site with a temple or temples. In this centre, other monumental buildings were constructed over time, including theatres and gymnasia. Central to life was the agora. The agora was the city's market, which had a dual function through also serving as an outdoor public space, where citizens could meet and have discussions, which was fundamental to decision-making in the polis. Fortifications were standard from the 7th century BC, except at Sparta, which famously lacked a fortified outer wall. A Spartan king from the later classical period, Agesilaus II, famously allegedly claimed the only walls Sparta needed were the spears of its men. As city-states were established in Archaic Greece, ruling councils and magistrates emerged at the top of their political structures. These magistrates and ruling councils consisted of men from an elite, select, ruling class. The aristocrats got their name from the Greek word aristoi, meaning the best. These aristocrats formed ruling dynasties of families, each presiding over their own respective region. Such aristocratic families may possibly have traced their forebears back to the era of Mycenaean Greece. The aristocrats led war between Polis, serving the role of adept horsemen as well as fighters. The Archaic period saw transformational change in warfare, with the emergence of hoplite fighters, who are commonly depicted in ancient Greek art, instead of the legendary heroic single combat of the Homeric age. Massed ranks of hoplites, citizen soldiers led by aristocrats, fought in tightly packed, closed ranks, with a spear in their right arm and, crucially, a shield in their left arm, which not only protected them, but also shielded the soldier to their left. Aristocrats, as shipowners, also conducted war using their vessels, with specialized warships with 2 levels of oarsmen appearing by the 8th century BC, the famous Greek trireme. When not in combat, aristocrats presided over their polis societies, ensuring justice was served and arbitrating between disputing parties. Additionally, aristocrats were responsible for ensuring adequate offerings and rites were dedicated to the city's deities by the priesthood, in which their daughters and wives often fulfilled the roles of priestesses. The art of rhetoric was developed by the nobles to better communicate with the citizenry. An expectation of physical fitness of leading citizens was prevalent. Common athletic feats included leading a hunt, being a deft hand with spears and swords, competing in athletic contests, and riding horses without stirrups, which were not yet invented. Alongside these manly pastimes were more refined activities, such as writing music, singing, and dancing. Eventually, particularly when coinage was introduced, some aristocrats became extremely wealthy through dealing with merchants and through lending, widening the gap between the rich and poor residents of the Polis. An inscription found near an ancient cistern at Arcturus in Crete, dating from the mid-7th century BC, reveals one of the earliest glimpses into the polis society and the role of the aristocrat. The inscription states, "May God be kind, the polis has thus decided, when a man has been cosmos, the same man shall not be cosmos again for 10 years. If he does act as cosmos, whatever judgments he gives, he shall owe double, and he shall lose his rights to office, as long as he lives, and whatever he does as cosmos shall be nothing. The swearers shall be the cosmos, and the demioi, and the 20 of the polis." The inscription outlines one of the earliest surviving laws from ancient Greece. It reveals that Arcturus was self-governing around 650 BC, devising its own laws. Through this, the citizens of Arcturus had created standardized arrangements for resolving disputes peacefully through a locally appointed public official named the Cosmos. This Cosmos would perform the duties of a judge for a fixed period of time, presumably to prevent abuses of power, which must have occurred prior to the drafting of this law. The inhabitants of Arcturus may have backed this law as a means of preventing aristocrats becoming too powerful. Support might have also come from within the aristocracy, as it secured the regular passing of office, enabling a circulation of elites, so various aristocrats could satisfy their own political ambitions without one aristocrat hogging the position for too long. The success or failure of a polis hinged upon the loyalty of its residents. Recognizing this, the polis created a myriad of methods to bond and unify their inhabitants. Spiritual methods for this used patron gods and their cults, and peculiar feast days and festivals. For example, the Daphne Theoria in Thebes, in which every 9th year a triumphal procession took place, honouring the god Apollo, to celebrate the victory of the Thebans over the aliens of Arn. On a less lofty level, Apollos' uniquely minted coinage, alongside its specific codes of law, demarcated the city-state's identity. Symbols were commonly used to depict the identity of Apollos. Notably, the owl, depicted on Athenian coins, emphasized the ties of Athens to the goddess Athena. Statues of illustrious individuals and gods fostered the veneration of their city-state's heroic defenders and prestigious founders. Crucially, during the Archaic period, individual city-states started to export their peculiar identities overseas, settling new Greek colonies in their own image around the Mediterranean. Notably, colonists from Corinth created the Polis of Syracuse on the island of Sicily. The development of these city-states and their spread around the Mediterranean through colonization set the scene for the coming classical period of Greece.